Welcome to Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I'm Tim Durling, Matt Phillips.
Hey guys.
Thanks for tuning into this episode. This is an anniversary episode. As you're watching this is 5 years, pretty much to the day, that I started this little YouTube channel, and
Cool.
it's been a lot of fun. It started as just a way to display the vinyl that I already had. I figured that would be it, and then I said, well, I'll do my cassettes, I'll do my CDs. Then I started to really expand my collection. I got Matt in as a co-host, and Will occasionally, and I've had my kids on here, Chad, John.
Chad.
And there'll probably be more to follow.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So on this episode, I thought it would be fun. I mentioned to Matt that, why don't we each pick 20 things that we found in about the last 5 years since the run of the show that were things we were looking for or things we weren't expecting to find, fun things, and the stories behind them. So that's kind of what the idea.
That was hard for me to come up with my list, I have to tell you.
It's not really any particular order, although there kind of is. And I thought since we're guesting here at Matt's place, I'll let Matt start his collection off, start his top 20 list.
Sure. So I've got all kinds of things to show you. We've got some vinyl, some CDs. So let's get to it. The first thing, so again, we're talking about stuff that we found in the last 5 years. Well, we'll call this a find. I got this from Tim.
There's a story behind this.
Yeah, this is the first Skid Row album.
Yeah, it's a classic.
1989, so this one is 30 years old.
Yeah, hard to believe.
And I'd say we're both probably into this album right from the start.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, do you want me to show the inside?
Yeah, let's have a look at it. So, if I recall correctly, and I believe that you have a European version of this, although it doesn't look that different than the domestically released versions.
It's very similar to the cassette inside, I would say.
Yeah, all the printing. I want to say that it was the Sussex Flea Market. Will bought himself a copy of that, and Matt was quite vocal about, if you want to get rid of that, and Will was like, no, thanks. And I said, well, I know how to make everybody happy. I found a copy. I think I found it used on Amazon and had it sent to you for your birthday. And so that was that. And I was fortunate enough, I found my copy, and I don't know how this happened. Yeah, ages ago at Backstreet in Fredericton, a Canadian copy. So great album, all-time classic.
Okay, so we're going to go through my whole collection.
And then I've got a list here too.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, next thing I want to show you, just because I love Devin Townsend, fellow Canadian lad, this is another one of his box sets that he put out. It's called Ziltoid Live at the Royal Albert Hall. So we're talking about just about every few years he does these special concerts. He puts kind of a theme behind everything. And then he does like a real deluxe package.
That's really cool. It looks like, it's like a record-sized book.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite heavy. The only thing was it got a little bit warped in the delivery, but So inside, it's kind of like almost getting like a tour program. But you've got your there's the CDs of the concert, and I believe in the back
DVDs.
You've got your DVDs, and I always try to get like the Blu-ray version of everything. So you've got the live music concert and
then you can watch it.
Yeah, there's like a little insert here, which I'll take out, and I'll just I don't know if you can hold that for a second. Yeah. And I'll just show a few quick pages. But basically, he's done one of these every 3 or 4 years. And it's just like getting a big tour program, so it's really hard to go through there. But
books, it's
yeah. So just pictures from the event and photo shoots and all kinds of cool stuff. So
right on. That's very unique. That's not your average.
No, nice hardbound kind of book. The next thing I want to show you is from my second favorite movie of all time, and I believe I made Tim sit down and watch this really late at night one time back in college.
I think I get it.
This is Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now. So this just had its 40th anniversary release, and they're actually doing I think they're calling it the final cut edition, releasing it in theaters. It's I don't know when you're going to be showing this actual video, but it probably will have already had its theatrical run.
Yeah.
But I was pretty happy to find this. This looks like an original. Like, this is definitely not a reissue.
It's a Canadian version. It's on Electra Records.
And it's got...
I don't see soundtracks that much, you know?
Yeah.
And it's whoever had this kept it in good shape. It's got everything that came with it, it looks
it's got a couple of these books inside of it. So someone must have had it, and either they got multiple copies of it, but it's got stills, and it's got like all the info about the cast. And
now, would that have come with the record, or would that have been something else that they just had that they kept inside the record?
I would say inside the record. I'll just show you one of the vinyls, but even the sleeves, it has like
it's the right sleeve.
The credits and stuff.
Now I'm guessing this has it's the
so
red.
There's your classic Electra.
Yeah.
I need to
late 70s, early 80s.
You can see I haven't actually played this one recently. It's pretty dusty, but there's your record.
That's cool.
Another thing I want to show you, well, this is music related anyway. Yeah. So I've been playing guitar like Tim since probably the early
93,
90s.
94, yeah.
Yeah, never really got too serious into guitar, but as I started to, I'd say within the last 4 or 5 years, I saw this bass at a local pawn shop and started learning how to play bass, actual fingerstyle bass. And
who better to learn bass from than Billy Sheehan?
Billy Sheehan from the Winery Dogs. Who
Mr. Big, David Lee Roth's band, Talus. I mean, he's a world-renowned bass player.
So Allie got me this for Christmas, my wife. I've seen this. Somebody ripped this and put it on YouTube. So I've watched this video dozens of times. Who buys DVDs anymore? Well, I do, actually.
Yeah.
But I was just like, man, I really should at some point buy that.
Yeah.
And it was kind of neat because the first time I played it, I was like, wow, I'm hearing things that I never heard before. Because when they upload to YouTube, the quality, not
you
so
lose
good.
a little quality.
Yeah, so this one's just the basic bass. He's got an advanced one. I actually have the book for it. I don't have the DVD yet, trying to track that down. But, this goes like from the earliest stages of learning how to play bass guitar. So,
and that's one thing I never learned was how to actually play bass. I'm the Jason Newsted method of playing with a pick when I do play bass because I'm more of a guitar player. But it's very cool. And you might think, Billy Sheehan, it's going to be, I'm not going to be able to keep up. But he keeps it he keeps it basic.
Yeah, and he's so engaging and not pretentious and just like, man, I'd love to just hang out with him someday.
He seems like a super cool guy.
And he's giving lessons now again. He's got a thing online. You can go and have a lesson with Billy Sheehan. Man, I think I would be very nervous to do
It's
that.
interesting, and it's Mr. Big. Paul Gilbert also gives guitar lessons on. He has guitar on online
take
school.
A lesson from Paul Gilbert. It'd be like Steve Vai.
Yeah, but I think I think these guys understand. I think they're able to break it down slow enough to go. Mm-hmm. This is the basics. Don't worry about the crazy stuff just yet, because at one point they didn't know how to do that either.
I've got a DVD to show you.
This is one of those cool things that you just don't expect.
Yeah, so everybody must know at this point I'm a big Oasis fan. This is the first DVD they ever put out called Live by the Sea. That comes from a lyric from one of their songs. It's good to be free. All I want to do is live by the sea. Anyway, so long story short, I've been looking for this pretty much since it came out in like 1995. This DVD would have come out right as What's the Story, Morning Glory was coming out, or like right before they got super
probably
huge.
came out on VHS originally. And then
exactly. Yeah. So it's just one of those things. We were at a local market. It was kind of like a flea market thing, and this guy had a truckload of just miscellaneous video games and DVDs and stuff, and I kind of just popped in while my wife was looking for something. I didn't really see anything of note. We were walking out, and she's like, "Hey, Matt, do you have all the Oasis DVDs?" I'm like, I mean, I kind of do, but the one I'm looking for, you're
not going to find it here. Well, guess what?
Is it called Live by the Sea? I'm like, what?
Yeah.
For $5.
You know, I've had that happen too, where you're with whoever you're at a place with.
Yeah.
They don't know the ins and outs of what you're looking for, so it's not like, oh yeah, right, it's that one.
Yeah.
Just this is what it's called.
Yeah. So quite often they'll post something like, yeah, I've had that for 20 years.
It happened to me this a long time ago now. I think 1993. Me and John and Chad we used to go to Presque Maine all the time. They used to have lots of cool pawn shops. And the first time we were in this one particular one, they were selling like 4 CDs for $20. I was looking through the tapes. I think Chad was looking through the CDs. And he's not a Y&T fan. He doesn't know anything about it. He said, hey, Tim, do you have Y&T Open Fire on CD? And I mean, that was strictly import.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, wow. Okay.
Why would somebody, so it was a Japanese import, $5, which I probably would have had to pay $60 for.
That's awesome.
There you go. So it happens.
Yeah.
And it's fun when it does.
The next thing I'm going to show you, I got a little bit of a personal connection to this one.
Yes, a friend of the show.
Yeah, a friend of the show. So, you've seen this guy featured in a few of his videos.
You've seen him on here, yes.
Yeah.
Actually, we got him on when this came out on Record Store Day 2016.
Yeah, so I'm going to show you. So this is James's live album. So far, it's the only one that he's put out on vinyl.
Yeah.
He put this out, so it came out on Record Store Day, I want to say...
It's 2016.
2016, so 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And this one's not only special because I got him to sign it for me on one of Tim's episodes.
Yeah.
But I was actually at the show where this was filmed. It's at the Imperial Theater in St. John, about an hour away.
So if you listen close, you can hear him cough. No.
Yeah. Here's a crowd shot.
Can you see yourself in there, or do you know roughly where?
I can see myself, and it's like, oh man, I never look at it from this direction. I'm basically in this
in that general area, yeah,
right there. So anyway, so this is before. I had known James. I met him once or twice, and this was kind of a cool thing. We planned our Record Store Day, and we were going to meet up with James.
And we did that, and he's a great guy. If you haven't seen the episode we did with James that we go through our Poison collections, you got to watch it. He's a funny guy, but he knows his music. He's passionate about it, and. And it's just a funny comedian. If you get a chance to go see the guy in concert,
he plays all over.
Yep.
So
he's on tour a lot of the time.
Go see him. I've seen him like 9 times now. And it's always
you're always gonna hurt yourself laughing. Yeah.
Okay. Next thing I want to show you another pickup from my friend Tim Derling.
This was an interesting one because this was a record store. Not to hijack, but there was a small record store / bookstore in Woodstock where I worked very, very briefly. It wasn't open very long, and it was just down around the corner from where I worked. I popped down. I knew Matt was missing a few Iron Maiden records, and you don't see them that much, especially ones that aren't reissues. And I said, "Is Power Slave one of them?" And he said, "Well, yeah." And so I ran back down and picked it up.
I only have a few of theirs on vinyl. I'm kind of holding out to find these original editions.
It's hard.
This was the first Iron Maiden album I ever owned on cassette.
Generally considered to be one of their best.
Yeah, this is by far my favorite. It's quite. As far as the amount of songs, there's not a lot of songs because some of them are
long songs. Ride of the Ancient Mariner,
12 minutes long,
etc., etc. But it looks so cool on vinyl too. You lose this stuff. This is a Canadian edition on Capitol.
Check that out.
It's got the original sleeve.
That's actually, I don't even think I've seen that artwork before.
Eye of Horus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, love that album. Now, the next thing I want to show you is something I got on 3 different formats.
Yeah, we did an episode dedicated to the release of this, and we're probably going to do the same thing for the next album from The Darkness, because they're one of our favorite bands.
The Darkness, Smile.
Yeah, still think it's a great album.
Really had a fun time doing a listening party for this one. And so we got in, this is one of the last Pledge Music.
It's the very last Pledge Music thing, because before...
that we got into.
Yeah, bad things happened.
Yeah. And so when we ordered that, we ordered, got the vinyl, got the CD.
Yeah, so. CD had a couple extra, 4 extra songs on it, I believe.
4 extra songs there.
Yeah, they're gearing up to release a new album. They've released a couple of songs from it so far. Interesting album artwork.
Tim surprised me.
Yes, yes.
The cassette version. Yeah. Now I haven't even opened this. I've gotten a few cassettes now. It's becoming a thing.
It has, yeah. And The Darkness did it. They also, when they did their live album live at Hammersmith, they put it out on cassette as well, and they're probably doing it with their new album too. See, these guys, I think, except for Rufus Taylor, who's quite a bit younger, but the core guys, they're like our age, so they grew up probably the first time they bought some of these classic albums were on cassette, so they realize there's a nostalgia for it.
Yeah, I think that's really cool.
So here Matt's about to show you something. You've seen it on an episode before because we did an episode about this band. It might have appeared on one of the box set shows that we did.
Yeah.
But it's one of those cases where a member of the group is actually like, wow, that's hard to find.
Yeah, it actually took me a year or so to track this down. Well, actually, it had been on Amazon for a while. I kind of basically waited for it to go on sale. I don't think we need to crack it open.
No, it's the Winery Dogs Dog Treats, and it includes some cool stuff, including their live Unleashed in Japan, or Unleashed, what do they call it? It's Japanese live album.
Yeah,
and,
so you were telling me that...
So somebody commented, I saw this on Twitter, someone commented on this, or they posted a picture of it, and Mike Portnoy himself, the drummer for Winery Dogs, and former Dream Theater, and et cetera, commented, wow, that's really rare these days.
Some artwork that kind of matches their first album.
So it's cool when you have a member of the band saying, you've got a real find there, and sometimes, well, we're going to see, sometimes they go, I don't even have a copy of that.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was a Pledge Music campaign, but so this is basically the last album from USA, the Presidents of the United States of America. Kudos to you. The reason I get on this one, it seemed to be a relatively inexpensive campaign, and what you got was, this is their new record that came out, so I got this on vinyl. You can see it was signed by the band. They signed the CD version too, so the CD and the vinyl really look identical. What I thought was also really kind of interesting, though, there's actually a cool live album. I haven't opened this because they sent me all the FLAC files and the MP3 files, so didn't really need to open this CD. This is just a live album taken through basically 2011. I don't know if it was, it's in a bunch of different spots, so. But what I also got with that,
this is really cool,
was like a signed discography, basically. All of their CDs, signed by the band. There's their debut album, so if you've heard the song Peaches, Lump, and that sort of thing, that's where that came from. They even signed this one. For some reason they signed it on the inside, but like for relatively inexpensively got almost their entire discography.
Except for what, the second one?
The second album, I can't figure that out.
Sony must own the complete copyright to that.
Yeah.
But what the mystery there is they also distributed their first album. My only guess is that they owned the first album and Sony distributed it, but then the second album they had signed them altogether. So
yeah. Another one I'm going to show you, a few of these in a row here, are finds that we got at the Record Expo. One thing that I've been kind of holding out for, finding a real awesome original copy of the Beatles' Revolver.
See, this is another example. Like, I'll spot Beatles records all the time, but I have no idea which ones Matt's looking for, and it's not just which ones he's looking for, it's more so than which albums he's looking for, but the versions of them. Because I know it matters to Beatles fans. It makes a big difference on it.
So nearly almost 20 years ago, Tim and I had been to a flea market they had at a local high school.
Yeah.
I picked up Rubber Soul. That was one of the first vinyls I ever collected. Like, it was probably not, like, we were either in college or just back from college, so early to mid 90s. And this was when you could get like those expensive records for like $15.
Yes, it was a kind of a golden period for sure.
Yeah, so I've waited that long
for Revolver. Yeah.
This one I found on the same day. I was pretty excited. I'm pretty sure Tim pointed this out to me.
Well, I knew that at one time you had this on cassette.
Yeah, this is a relatively, I would say, unknown Canadian band.
Yeah, they only did the one album, I think. White Heat. Came out in 1989.
Must have shown up on Much Music at some point.
Yeah, they had one video, Rolling with the Thunder.
Yeah, I mean, at the time I felt it was kind of Def Leppard-ish a little bit and really liked it. I mean, it's a pretty decent album for a relatively unknown band.
So this came out, it was distributed by CBS Canada. It was produced with the assistance of the Canadian Manitoba Cultural Industry, so they got a grant, and this is also a stamped copy.
Yeah.
It remains property of CBS. And the only thing I noticed about it is that one of the co-producers on the song is Gil Moore from Triumph.
Oh,
and
okay.
also another thing, and I wondered about, given the sound of this band, but I looked it up and it's not, none of the members.
No.
I know that the band Firehouse was originally called White Heat, but that's just a coincidence.
Oh,
not
okay.
the same group at all.
And I did look up this record. I tried to find some of their stuff online. There is a video for Rolling with the Thunder on YouTube.
Yeah.
And apparently the daughter of the lead singer is like, hey, that's my dad. And she got into a nice little conversation about it with
Cool.
people online. So.
Yeah.
Ooh, now we're coming up with a list of things that I didn't really think I'd ever really find. One of them that I would just like kind of bit the bullet and found, and one of them I completely was not expecting to find at all. The first album from Canadian band Boot Sauce.
Yeah, this is the early 90s vinyl that's not any kind of reissue is really rare, and I don't think these would have been reissued anyway.
No,
So-
exactly. And got this one at our local Backstreet Records.
Yeah.
We've been shopping at Backstreet's pretty much the record store.
That
we've
was
been
the
going
first
to.
one, yeah, 93. I couldn't
Yeah.
believe it. It was actually a place that sold old records. It was quite a novelty at the
Yeah.
time.
So this one's pretty cool where you've got, it's also got like
It's kind of like a plastic...
a mylar or some
Yeah,
kind of thing, and
yeah.
it's just really cool.
Yeah, by the end of by 1990, you weren't seeing it. And did you not say that the guitar player... You
Yeah.
posted that on Instagram, and the guitar
Yeah,
player says, I don't even have a copy.
Sonny Greenwich, one of the co-guitar players. He
Yeah.
lives in Ireland now. He's a YouTuber himself and
Yeah.
is still making some music and playing live. But he's like, man, I don't even have a copy of that.
That's... Wow. That's saying something. Yeah.
Another one, this one I actually bit the bullet on. Paid way more for it than I would ever normally pay for a vinyl.
This is
but
one of your
still got
favorite bands, and it's an original 90s vinyl.
Yeah, just saw them live a few months ago. The Cult Ceremony from 1991. It's got Wild Hearted Son, Heart of Soul. Just love this record. There's the boys. So obviously, like your 12-string guitar acoustic ballads were very popular at this
Yeah.
time. So like Wild
Heart of Soul.
Heart of
was that,
Soul,
yeah.
and yeah. So there's Billy with his famous Guild guitar, and yeah, absolutely love this record. Found it at a local record shop, and just
But, probably what you paid for it is less than what you'd have to get it for online because you'd have to pay shipping and...
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. Glad to have that one
Shipping
on
into
my
Canada is a killer these days. It's like the shipping costs more than the items.
Yeah, we're gonna mix it up a little bit again.
This is cool.
We went to the flea market in Moncton, I
Yeah,
believe.
Dexter's Flea Market, where both of us have found many a cool find.
Yeah, so the thing that really got me into Kiss, other than their tunes, was watching their videos.
Yeah, VHS of Kiss Exposed. This originally came out in 1987. By today's standards, it's not exactly politically correct, but
not even close.
no, but it's a lot of fun. It was at the time. At the time it came out, and I was years before I got into Kiss, but I watched this when I did get into the band.
It's the same artwork on the
This
side,
was
but-
some of the first readily available, officially available early footage
Yeah.
of them live in concert. And some of my favorites have been the stuff from Brazil, from the Creatures of the Night tour, because I love that period of the band. And
Yeah, a little bit of everything on here, but it's heavily weighted towards.
The
I would
80s.
say that Asylum had just come out.
It was the most recent album. This came out a
Yeah.
few months before Crazy Nights came out, so it didn't.
Yeah.
I actually, this video may have come out when the album came out, but when they filmed it. So yeah, it leans heavily on Asylum, so Animalize, Lick It Up, and yeah.
Yeah, so I would have originally had that on VHS, but to find something like that on DVD is...
You know, those home videos don't always make it to a format change. Like, look at, you know, Skid Row, one of our favorites, So Say Can You Scream?
Yeah.
Rhino Videos never put up, they could easily pop up one that had the 2 or 3 on one, the No Frills video, the Roadkill one. They could put those all into one nice set, and there's people that would buy it. It wouldn't buy it. The footage is out there. But anyway, that's a dysfunctional... That's dysfunctional, that whole organization.
All right, I'm going to show you a few more vinyls.
We're getting some heavy hitters now.
Talking about, you know, favorite records of all time.
Oh, yeah.
Not just... Yeah. I mean, personally, I think it's their best album. There's fans are like, well, we only like their 70s stuff, and they kind of blah, 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 blah.
This is, to me, it's one of my favorite Aerosmith albums, and I personally think, and I think I've talked about this, I think it's their last great album from start to finish.
Okay.
Every song, just a killer song. It's Pump, of course, from 1989, and you've got an original 1989 copy here on Geffen Records, which is, nowadays, it's easy enough to find the Aerosmith records in their reissued form, which is cool, but it's cooler to find the originals, I think.
Yep. And there was a really cool making of DVD for that too.
There is. It's one of the best ones that came out of that era. Recognize this.
In Excess from 1992.
Yeah.
Welcome to Wherever You Are. So another...
I tracked this one down for Matt for his birthday, and we go over this extensively in our NXS episode.
Yep.
And as we said on there, what I thought was cool about this is that each of the formats that came out, cassette, CD, and vinyl, they used a different shot. And if I could have found it at the time when I worked my job in radio, when it was in an AM station, on the wall there was a promotional poster for this album when it came out, and it had each of the photos from the formats, and that would have been an awesome thing to hang on your wall. But anyway.
So, anyways, thanks again for that. Yeah, Tim. That was amazing. Something that was a little bit hard for me to track down. I eventually got a copy.
This was Record Store Day 2017 exclusive, the Def Leppard EP. This originally came out, I mean, in very small copies in the UK in 1979. Joe Elliott, I think Joe Elliott's parents gave him the money to have this printed up. And it's the only Def Leppard release I've ever seen that does not have Rick Allen on it. It's got Frank Noon on drums, and it's only got 3 songs on it: Ride Into the Sun, Get Your Rocks Off, and Overture. Ride Into the Sun was later re-recorded for the retroactive album. Get Your Rocks Off and Overture were re-recorded for their first album, On For The Night. And that was, I was fortunate enough to find that right away. You and Will didn't get one on the day, but you both eventually tracked it down.
Yep, just got a few more things to show you here. This was kind of interesting for me. I'll give you the background on this. This guy's name is Victor Lundberg. You've possibly never heard of him. His music is, it kind of reminded me a little bit of Joe Satriani.
Okay.
So the quick story behind this one, I've been a member of a website called Shack News, so shacknews.com, for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And this guy, not under this name, but under a different account, he's been posting music stuff forever. And he posted some samples. I said, man, I really love that. He's from Sweden, and he sent me this for free in the mail.
Cool. That's awesome.
And with a little personalized message. I should have got him to sign them, but check out Victor Lundberg. This was actually my favorite one. It's called Momentum. So if you're into kind of that Steve Vai, Joe Satriani stuff,
guitar.
One thing I really liked about it, some of the songs has some of that really cool like distorted Metallica style bass, but with like Joe Satriani kind of music over top.
Okay.
Thought it was really interesting. Got one more thing to show you.
Related to something that you just saw, that you saw previously.
Yeah, so Joe Elliott has a side project called The Down and Outs. And a while ago, I picked up a magazine by Classic Rock. And it came with, sometimes they'll come with little collections of like a miscellaneous... Like
new bands that sound like an old
band.
Yeah. But every once in a while they'll do one that
they'll put
is
the
all
whole
one artist.
album out. Yeah. So I had this one, Joe Elliott's Down Now. This is their My Regeneration album. So this is basically Joe and the Choir Boys.
The London Choir Boys, minus their singer Spike.
Yeah, and they're covering all Ian Hunter.
It's Ian Hunter, Mott the Hoople, when they were just called Mott.
Yeah, so you've got England Rocks.
Also known as Cleveland Rocks. If you've ever seen the Drew Carey show, same song.
There's the song Good Times is actually covered by INXS.
The Easy Beats did it originally, which is George Young's band. George, the older brother of Angus and Malcolm.
Yeah.
And,
so the reason I'm showing you this, I thought it was kind of neat to find this in a magazine here locally, but they did a concert, a live like DVD, Blu-ray thing. I've been trying to track that down for years and years. I never could find a copy of it. So out of the blue, I started messaging the Down and Outs Facebook page.
Yep.
And sure enough, they messaged me back. And I'm like, man, all I want to do, and I will pay for this, I just want to find a copy of this live.
Yeah. Because it's not like this band did a lot of shows, because Joe's always on the road with Def Leppard.
Yeah. So incidentally, they've got a third album coming out, but I've never been able to find that, and I was back and forth we're talking months.
Yeah. You'd keep me up to date with whoever with their admin.
Yeah. And they were so nice, and she's like, well, I was just talking to Joe, and he thinks he found one, he's going to send it to you. Well, it never happened, but they did send me the actual full Jewel Case CD of the debut album,
which has a few more songs on it than the classic rock edition.
And he signed it for me. To Matthew, best wishes. So
that's pretty cool. Singer of one of our mutual all-time favorite bands.
You can imagine me getting a package in the mail from Joe Elliott.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
So that was my collection of stuff.
20. Okay. So we're going to switch to mine. Mine, like Matt's, they're not in order, but they are in order. So I'm just going to get started. A lot of these are, they're ones that I've been looking for a long, long time. And, in a lot of cases, you can find them online. But it's fun to actually locate them in the wild. I'll use that expression a lot, but just when you're somewhere near, oh, look, there it is. And Record Expo 2018, great. Everybody that went that day, we all found something.
Tons of stuff.
I found a copy of the first Europe album on vinyl. Now, this is not an original, because the Europe fans will know that it originally came out in Europe, the continent only, with a band photo on it. This is the 1989 version that Epic reissued after they got big internationally. And I like this cover better than the one. I don't know where this artwork came from, because I don't think it appeared anywhere else. But this came out in '89, but the album's from '83. And this is a stamped promotional copy from CBS. And it's just got the standard Epic sleeve. There was probably a lyric sleeve because the CD and the cassette had lyrics in it, but, well, the cassette did anyway, so that means it exists. But I was perfectly happy to find this first Europe album. Now, I haven't got a lot of cassettes to talk about, but I do have some. I was trying to mix it up throughout the formats. I'm a big Dream Theater fan, and this is one I actually got on Discogs. It's not, they originally started, their first album came out in 1989. It's the only one that James LaBrie does not sing on. The original, well, not the original singer, but the original singer when they started recording was a guy named Charlie Dominici. And this is the first Dream Theater album, When Dream and Day Unite. It wasn't successful. It was reissued on CD after Images and Words came out and went gold. This is the original cassette copy it was on Mechanic Records, which was a metal label that MCA distributed. Yeah. This is a US copy. And now it's weird, it's got a CRC sticker on it, which marks it as Columbia House. I've never seen one like that before. So it's in decent shape. Wow. That's what the cassette looks like. But what's interesting about this, the CD version I have of When Dream and Day Unite is a reissue on One Way Records. So it doesn't have much in it. This has the complete, this is the first time I was able to read the complete credits, and it's also got all of the lyrics. It's not my favorite Dream Theater album, but it's a darn good start. I mean, right from the beginning, these were young guys and they could just play and play and play. But obviously, when they got James LaBrie, he had a a voice that was more suited to their material, and they had Pull Me Under, which was a big rock radio hit. So anyone that has followed the show for any amount of time knows that I'm a huge 8-track collector of rock albums that I like, specifically the ones that came out strictly through the record clubs. After they were in retail stores, they continued in Columbia House and RCA Music Service until 1988. So there are some big albums from the 80s that you would probably think, well, yeah, I had that on tape. It didn't come out on 8-track, and a lot of them did. And one of the biggest albums to come out of Canada throughout the 80s and was big worldwide, a lot of people my age had it on cassette, myself included, and it's still one of my favorite albums of all time. And here it is on 8-track. This is Bryan Adams' Reckless album from 1984 on 8-track. And you can see it's got a little bit of that wear and tear that happens. And this is a U.S. Columbia House version.
Oh boy. A&M
Records. So there it is. It's one of the biggest albums of the 80s. You won't see it like this very often. I've got a few more 8-tracks to show you as we go along. We'll get back into some vinyl here. This is Vinyl Confessions. I gotta say, and one of the cool things about doing this show is I've made some friends. I mean, you know, met some people along the way that have helped. Not only that, have helped me locate stuff. So I got to send a shout out to Bud Campbell for finding this record for me. I believe he found it at Backstreet Records in Fredericton, and so we met. I paid him for it, and I've been looking for it forever. It's the first Cinderella album, Night Songs. This is a Canadian copy on Mercury, and I love this album. Tom Kiefer actually has some new music coming out soon. This one, it originally had a lyric sleeve. This doesn't come with it, but I'm fine with that. And the record itself just came. That's what the Mercury, I like the red Mercury logo they were using at the time for the label. So thanks again, Andy, for that. That was awesome. All right, earlier I did an episode where I talked about the most recent Helix release called Old School, when I got from directly from Planet Helix. And I also got reissues of their first 2 albums. So there aren't a lot of albums that I was actively searching for on CD. But the first 2 Helix albums were 2 of those, so I'm going to show you one of them. I tried to limit it to 1 per artist. That's the first Helix album, Breaking Loose. And then this is a reissue on Prague AOR Records. So I was really glad to have this. It's got some bonus tracks on it. But again, as I mentioned in the Old School episode, one of my biggest pet peeves is when they send CDs that look like that. Where they're upside down. To me, it's just the dumbest thing. I mean, Matt, you're a designer. How easy is it to flip that over? It's not very hard before you run them off.
Yeah, somebody's not paying attention.
No, it's just it's like. So I turn it sideways in my collection, but it's not the same. Anyway, glad to have it on CD. Glad to have not paid an arm and a leg for it.
If they would ever actually.
Well, you know, if you're a Helix fan, I mean, Brian Vollmer's the most approachable, easygoing guy. If you message him, he'll message you back. And he said, "Hey Tim, thanks for the question. I just don't think we're going to reissue at that point." And a few years later, obviously, this company came along and said, "Hey, we'll do that for you." So it's perfect, and you can usually get bundles on Planet Helix, and it's the best.
You're speaking right with Brian himself.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably the one doing up the packaging and putting them in the post office for you on his way to Tim Hortons. He's a cool guy, and he's very open and honest. I follow him on Facebook. He gets political sometimes, but he's just a regular guy that happens to sing in a rock and roll band. All right, next up, I believe, got another 8-track to show you. Now this was, okay, so, let's see, it's been a year, well, 2.5 years anyway. Marley and I made a road trip to Portland, Maine. I took her to see Panic at the Disco, and we did a road trip episode about that. I found all kinds of things in Portland, all kinds of cool stuff. I found Vandenberg Records and Tesla Records, and it was a great haul and stuff that I was crossing off my list. Now, so there's a few things I could have included on this show. As a matter of fact, there's something else down the line that I'm going to show you. But I walked into this one store, and I mentioned the 8-tracks before. At the time, the newest 8-track in my collection was Def Leppard's Pyromania, which is awesome. It's one of my all-time favorite albums. That album actually did come out in a retail form, and it's probably one of the last. It came out in January of 1983. And you can easily tell that because the retail and the RCO versions are noticeably different as soon as you look at them. Okay. So that was the newest one I had. So I walked into the store and they had a pile of RCOs. Now they were more pop oriented. I wasn't seeing anything I liked, but I happened to come across this one for $1. Foreigner Agent Provocateur on 8-track. This is from late 1984. This is a US Columbia House edition, obviously on Atlantic Records, and all these Columbia House ones look the same. The only difference is the logo. They'd put it right there, the actual logo. This one had I Want to Know What Love Is, and that was Yesterday were the big hits. This was a platinum selling album. And what I think is cool about this is that the blue in the Foreigner, the F on here in the album cover, the Columbia House issues had a blue stripe around it. I'll show you the Bryan Adams one. It just happens to match. It's the same blue. Close. Yeah. So anyway, that was an unexpected, totally unexpected find for $1. I thought it would be a lot more than that. And I said it's cool to find stuff in the wild, but sometimes you just you know what? I have a feeling if I don't get this soon, the price is only going to go up. So was gearing up to do, Will and I were gearing up to do another Kiss vinyl episode. We'd done one earlier. His collection went through the roof. So I said, well, okay, there's something that I got to break down and get, and it is the 1985 reissue of Creatures of the Night, one of our favorite Kiss albums with the ridiculously stupid band shot of the group as it was at that point with Bruce Kulick. So I don't know if this came out before Asylum, which was Bruce's first album with the band, or after, but it came out the same year. But I mean, any way that you get this album is great. It's a slightly different mix, and I think a couple songs are in a different order, but what's worse than this front cover is this back cover.
I've always speculated.
I don't know who this is for. I don't know who they're serving with this. But anyway, this is a Canadian edition on Mercury. It also came with a lyric sheet, and that looks very similar to the original one that came with it. And the record itself has a personalized. This looks the same as the original Casablanca first issue, which is really cool. And actually, I'll be honest with you, this is the first time that a record came with all of this stuff outside of the record sleeve.
So you could see.
And that's when I started to do this, when I put them away myself, because I've read that, you know, if you put them inside like you would normally, it leads to ring wear. So now that's why I said, well, that looks silly, but after a while I said, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. So I broke down and got that record. Next up is not a band that you would ever think of that existed in the 8-track era, but they did, because what a lot of people don't know is that they actually started in 1978, although for most people it was 1984 before they came on anyone's radar, in 1987 before they became a multi-platinum selling band, and by that time only the lead singer was the same as how they started, and of course I'm talking about Whitesnake. Whitesnake, their early albums, pre-slided in albums, aside from the Geffen reissues from '87, aren't that easy to find. You can find them, but if you can find them in their original labels, it's really cool. And I happened to notice, because I'd be checking for this stuff on eBay, this.
Oh, wow.
Whitesnake's Ready and Willing album from 1980. This is a Whitesnake 8-track. This is a US edition. They were on Mirage Records, which was distributed by Atlantic. This contained the original version of Fool for Your Love. In my opinion, it's one of the best early Whitesnake albums. A lot of folks would agree with that. But yeah, there's Whitesnake on 8-track. I've seen many others. This is the only one I've seen up for sale.
The label on that one, just so is that fairly not typical for an 8-track to not have the label kind of go all the way around, or is that?
It depends on where it was pressed. You know, sometimes they'd go like this. Sometimes they'd go like this. You know, sometimes this would start here. It just depends. It depends on the record label. It depends on the year that it came out. So next up, what do we have? Well, all right. I'll show you another cassette. One of my favorite sort of unsung bands, and I've done many an episode on them, is Coney Hatch, the great Canadian rock band. They didn't do a lot of albums. I did a special episode on them last year where I went through the US cassette releases, which aren't that easy to find. This is their first one on Mercury Records. They were on Anthem in Canada. It's very dark, the way that they printed that. I don't know, it's a very dark, it's a cool album cover if you've got it on vinyl. And that's the typical polygram cassette from the 80s. That's what it looked like. And the only other thing it has on it, other than, you know, information on how to take care of your tapes, is produced by Kim Mitchell.
Oh.
So, speaking of Coney Hatch, Carl Dixon, lead singer for Coney Hatch, is doing a show at the Playhouse next March.
Yeah.
And we went to see him in 2005. It was before his accident. So we'll probably be there again.
Oh, it was before his accident?
Yeah, the accident happened in 2008.
Wow.
Yeah. He's still got his vocal pipes, and you know, follow him on Facebook. He's got a lot of solo stuff that I'm not as familiar with, but the Coney Hatch stuff is great.
I love that last record that they put out.
It would. I'd love to have them do another album. They've done a few shows, but I'd love to see another one. Coney Hatch 5, maybe. Okay, so predating Tim's Vinyl Confessions by a couple of months, first road trip that Will and I made to Moncton happened on the same day as Tropical Storm Arthur. It was just getting started. We didn't know it was going to be a tropical storm. We just thought it was raining. So we ended up in Moncton and bought some Kiss records and, you know, found some other things. But one thing I found at Dexter's Flea Market that day, and I almost flipped by it because I didn't realize it was an original, was this Queen, A Kind of Magic. Now, it's not hard to get this album in some form or another, but this is the original U.S. Capitol Records CD, which it wasn't a successful album in the U.S., and it wasn't out on CD very long, and it went out of print. So this cost me all of $10, and I was really happy to find this one in this version.
Drove 3 hours in a tropical storm?
Just to get it, yeah. Well, the drive back was a lot worse. The odd thing is that it pretty much stopped in Moncton. But on the way home, it was a pretty hairy drive home.
That's really neat. And so what are the big tracks off of that?
Well, One Vision was originally from the Iron Eagle soundtrack. It appeared here again. The title song, A Kind of Magic, was a big hit worldwide. Who Wants to Live Forever? Actually, this album is kind of the soundtrack to the first Highlander movie. It kind of is most of the songs on here, I'd say over half, Princes of the Universe, Give Me the Prize, they all appeared on Highlander. Nice. So, there you go. I gotta send a shout out to our mutual friend James. I can't pronounce his last name.
Oh, Sulikov?
Yeah. We went, so Matt, my old friend John, the three of us went to Bangor for Record Store Day this year, and one thing that Matt and I were looking for, which we did not find, James had an extra copy, and I bit the bullet, paid a little bit of bucks, and got it from him, was the Record Store Day exclusive issue of Alice Cooper's 2005 album, Dirty Diamonds. And this is a great album. I mean, Alice was on most of the stuff he's put out in the last 20 years has been really, really good, really strong.
This one's very eclectic. I love it that it goes from, you've got your opening songs are like your hard rock stuff.
Yeah.
The Saga of Jesse James.
That's
like really strange.
That's very much in the
country flavor, but like
it's the type of thing that he would have done on an album like Lace and Whiskey.
Love it.
Sunset Babies is funny. Steal That Car is a great song, almost a new wavy kind of song. And
so we saw him
on this tour, in St. John with Helix opening.
Yeah.
That was a great show. So yeah, thanks again, James. Another 8-track to show you. Let's see. So I mentioned that the Foreigner Agent Provocateur albums from '84. When I got that became the newest one in my collection. I found another one on eBay. It was a year newer.
Crazy.
This is Loverboys, Lovin' Every Minute of It, their fourth album from 1985. And this was a big album for them. Of course, the title song was a big hit. This Could Be the Night was a top 10 hit. And this is a U.S. Columbia House issue. By then, they were the cream colored, where they were using a lot of time. It didn't have the blue stripe around it anymore. And this is a little beat up, but I mean, it's from 1985. And this actually was the template that I sent to Matt when we gifted James Mullinger with his Poison Look What the Cat Dragged In 8-track. This was the template that was used, and what it would have looked like had it actually come out in 1986. So, yeah, I was really happy to get this one. I got another cassette to show you here. High Tides Music, shout out to Greg. I haven't been to the new store yet, got to fix that soon. But last year I was down and was happy enough to find this. This is Metallica's Kill 'Em All. It's easy enough to find Kill 'Em All, especially now that they've reissued them all. This is an original Canadian issue on Bonsai Records, which was a metal label out of Quebec, I think, that was distributed by Polygram. So they actually had major label distribution in Canada before they had it in the US.
That's cool.
And so Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning both came out in this form. I don't have Ride the Lightning on cassette on Bonsai, but I do have it on vinyl. Cassette is pretty well worn.
Yeah.
And that's what the J card looks like. So yeah, I was glad to add that to my Metallica collection. Yeah, okay. So the one thing that Matt and I have in common on our list is the Def Leppard EP. I was the only one that managed to find this on the day of Record Store Day 2017. Found it at Spin It in Moncton, and I don't know if there was any other copies before me, but there was only one left.
Isn't there somebody like
There was a guy behind me and said, that's the only reason I came, and I said, I'm sorry, man. Like, it's luck of the draw with these things.
Yep.
So
the record stores never know how much they're going to get.
No,
so
no.
Like, we want 10 copies, they'll get 2.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
That's just it. So there you go. So that's the one thing that we had in common. Okay, this takes the pinnacle as far as 8 tracks go in recentness.
Okay, so we're talking later.
So yeah, like even crouching further, right up to the precipice, I've heard it described at. Because at a certain point, November 1988 is the last known. There's 2 releases, both of which I'd like to find, that came out in November 1988, which were reported to be the last ones produced on 8-track. They're both greatest hits albums. One is Fleetwood Mac's greatest hits. The other one is Journey's greatest hits. Yes, Journey's greatest hits exists on 8-track. No, I don't have it. I've seen it on eBay once for like $250 starting bid.
Oh.
Because you're talking about something that they may have made 50.
Really?
You know what I mean? Like there would be
Wow.
such low, I don't know,
Yeah,
200. There may have been very, very
yeah.
low pressings, and I've always had this vision of someone in the processing plant at Columbia House getting the cards that people would send in with the numbers and the letter to indicate the format and go, oh crap, someone actually wants this on 8-track. I guess we'll have to run a few off.
Yeah.
So, I had another one, but this one bopped it off the list. This is Fleetwood Mac, Tango in the Night. This is from 1987.
Okay.
So this is the newest 8-track in my collection.
So what are the songs on that one?
So this one had Big Love, Seven Wonders, Little Lies. This was a big album. It was the last one that Lindsey Buckingham was on for many, many years. So this is a Columbia House issue. It's on Warner Brothers, but it's obviously a Columbia House issue. So yeah, 1987. There's not very many from this period that I'd like to get. Like there's Sammy Hagar's 1987 album, Bryan Adams' Into the Fire. But yeah, we're really getting... By this time, it's primarily like pop superstars like Madonna, Michael Jackson, or country. Like if you were a country artist in this period, you were pretty well served because just about every album, George Strait, Reba McEntire, Alabama, all of their albums came out on 8-track. But rock bands, you had to be pretty much, by this time, superstar acts, like really, really popular, I guess, to justify them bothering making the molds for them.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're getting into the rarer and rarer and rarer stuff here. I'd mentioned the trip that Marley and I made to Portland, and one of the things that I was excited to find was the first Vandenberg album. I love this band. This band, kind of like Coney Hatch, not a lot of music to talk about, but I really, really like it. This was the first one and the most successful one. It contained Burning Heart, which, by the way, I just read that Whitesnake are putting out a 30th anniversary edition of Slip of the Tongue. Yeah. Reading Hit Parader and Circus from back in the day, before Adrian Vandenberg's hand injury or whatever that precipitated Steve Vai playing on Slip of the Tongue, they were going to redo Burning Heart, and I always wanted to hear Whitesnake's take. I always wanted to hear Coverdale sing that. So it looks like a version exists. Now, I don't know if that's on the super deluxe version or if there's a more affordable version out there that would contain that song. I don't know. But anyway, that came from this album. This is a U.S. edition on Atco Atlantic.
The pose.
It's interesting, yeah. The leopard skin, everything, really, that Adrian's got on here.
So who's in this band?
Well, Adrian Vandenberg, who went on to Whitesnake,
Yeah.
is the only name that anybody would recognize. So now, okay, so the next two I'm going to show you are vinyl, and these were running gags with Matt and I for a long, long time because it took me forever to find these. And he would say, hey, there's some such and such records here. And I'd say, don't have it, they don't have it, they don't have it. I'll show you the first one. So I'm a huge Kansas fan. That's the reason the show is called Vinyl Confessions. Most people know that. And my vinyl collection was pretty complete by them. I was missing their 1988 album, In the Spirit of Things, which was the second of the two albums they did on MCA. It was the last album they did on a major label, and it was not successful. Therefore, it was really tough to find on vinyl for me. And finally, again, Record Store Day 2017, we found a lot of stuff that day. At Dexter's, I finally located a version of In the Spirit of Things. It's a Canadian version on MCA. It's not a cutout, and it's not a promotional copy, which I'm surprised to see. Now, this album is not one of my favorites, but I needed it to complete the collection. This is the only Kansas album that Bob Ezrin produced, too. So, noted producer. And these photos and things, credits, all appeared in the CD. And as it was actually a personalized, it didn't have the rainbow MCA label on it. It actually had a personalized label on it. And I will say this, I haven't seen a copy of it since.
Yeah.
So it was hard to find. So Matt would say, there's a Kansas record you're looking for. I'm like, you don't see it. It's like the Oasis DVD, but you don't see it. He'd say, oh, they get this. Don't I have it? I have this? That's not it.
Yeah.
Continuing with that theme, this one's even more so. This was more of a running gag. Anybody that's watched the show, I'm a huge April Wine fan. Actually, they're coming to Moncton November 7th or 8th
okay.
with Kim Mitchell. I don't know yet if I'm going, but April Wine always deliver in concert. They're one of the tightest bands I've ever seen. Their 1985 live album, One for the Road, which was recorded on their 1984 tour, which at the time was their farewell tour, and they only played in Canada then. It was the best known lineup of the band, the most successful lineup, the lineup that gave you Harder, Faster, Nature of the Beast, Power Play, those albums. That was their successful run. For whatever reason, One for the Road was very, very elusive on vinyl. Hard enough to find on cassette. And, Matt would message me, hey, they got April Wine, Stand Back. I got it. They got Harder, Faster. I got it. They got Nature of the Beast. I got it. Oh, The Whole World's Going Crazy. Never seen that one. I got it. You don't see the one I'm looking for. Oh, they got a live album here. What's it called? Live at the El Macambo. I got it. So finally, Terry, one of my old co-workers, found this for me, I believe, at Taz Records in either Bedford or Halifax. Because he knew enough to know, because I'd always talk about it. There's an April Wine record I can't find. I said, it's called One for the Road. He sent me a picture. I'm like, yeah, that's it. So finally, I was able to add this to my collection. It's a great album. I mean, it's got a lot of their best known songs.
So what year is that?
This came out in '85.
Oh, okay.
So for whatever reason, it's hard to find. So this is a Canadian issue on Aquarius. I think it was only issued in Canada. It doesn't have their logo on it for some reason. And
wow, got the sleeve and everything.
the sleeve came with it, which is cool. And it's actually got all the lyrics, even though all the songs, they're all live. It's got all the lyrics. So I was very, very happy to get this. And
so how was your April Wine collection looking?
That completed it.
Yeah.
You know what? And since then, haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Almost 4 years, haven't seen another one. So it truly is, for whatever reason, it's elusive. All right, the last street. There's a couple more things I want to show you here. Now, one of them is actually, this might be the rarest item I own, but the reason I'm not showing it to you last, there's a reason for it. Again, one of my all-time favorite bands, an obscure band, Y&T. I knew that because they started in 1976 that they came out in the 8-track era. Their first two albums came out on London Records, 76 and 78. Then they signed with A&M. I have never come across any of their A&M albums on 8-tracks, so Earthshaker, Black Tiger, Mean Streak. I have no idea. Earthshaker at the very least was 81. It should have come out, given other albums that came out at the time. I just don't know. that's the thing. You can say, well, no, it never came out. Then you find out, yeah, it did. It just didn't sell very many copies. So I saw a picture of this years ago when I was quite an active member on the Y&T fan forum. Well, it was their official website, but it was the fan forum where people interacted. And I actually made a lot of good friends on there that I'm still Facebook friends with. So someone posted an autographed copy of their first album on 8-track. And so I knew it existed, and I knew what it looked like, and I knew what order the songs were in. So because of that, I was able to create a Discogs entry for it and put it into my want list. Well, one night, I got one item available in your want list, which is always exciting. And I found this.
Look at the color of that.
It is beaten up. The cassette's the same color. This is the first album from Y&T, Yesterday and Today. It's pretty beaten up. Really beaten up, actually. But you got to figure there wouldn't have been too many of these and it wouldn't have had a second pressing. There's all the song titles. Now, you might be wondering, why is there no artwork? And I used to wonder that too. The reason is, some companies, and at a certain time, they would come with slipcases. The slipcases had the front and back artwork on them. But I'm perfectly happy with this, to have a Y&T 8-track in my collection. I know their second album, Struck Down, exists. It's on Discogs. It's in my want list with the slipcase, the photo that someone provided. But yeah, you're not likely to find one that's in much better shape.
Any idea where that came from in Discogs, Tim? Was it an American?
Oh yeah, it came from the States, and this is a London Records edition. It's a US edition. But yeah, because normally you'd have the cover art here. This would be the back of it. But it obviously came with a slipcase, and that's one of the things I've learned over the years. So there, Y&T 8-track. So I've got one more thing to show you. Now, the reason that the Y&T 8-track didn't come in the first place is because I at least knew that existed, as rare as it is. Okay. The next thing I'm going to show you, Discogs also helped me with. And Journey, in 1979, after Steve Perry had joined, Columbia put out not a three album collection, but a compilation of songs from their first 3 albums, pre-Steve Perry, when they were more of a prog band, called In the Beginning. And it only came out it originally came on an 8-track cassette and record. A look on Discogs, a random look, because I wasn't even looking for it, because again, I didn't even know it existed. Come to find out, it did come out in Europe in the early 90s. So here it is, Journey in the Beginning on CD. So you can tell that it's a foreign one if you know anything about the CBS CDs. Normally it has the white with the red lettering. But this was a truly cross off the list, and it was a cross off the list that I didn't even think existed. And
it's a nice prize.
Yeah, and basically all that's in here are other CBS albums that are available in this series. So it's not the rarest thing, because there are a couple copies that are still for sale on Discogs, but it was something that after all these years I newly learned existed. So that's a look at the 20 of the coolest music things that I found and Matt's found.
Did you have any of those?
Yeah. Did you have any of those? Comment below. But wait, there's more. Given that this is September, when you're going to be seeing this, Matt and I both have birthdays in September.
Dude.
So, I've had this for a little while now. I don't have it wrapped. So Matt, I present to you.
Oh my gosh. I actually just watched this video last night. We did a special episode on my favorite band, INXS.
We could have used this for that episode, but I've had this for a few weeks post-filming.
Wow.
This is INXS. This is a compilation, and Matt had it on vinyl. You'll see it on that episode, of songs from their first 2 albums, plus B-sides and some unreleased songs. This is a 1988 CD from Australia that I found on Discogs.
Holy cow. It came, like it literally, oh my word.
So that's something that Matt did not have.
Cool, dude. Thank you.
No problem. Now, of those songs on there, are there any of them that you had never had on CD?
Oh, well, Learn to Smile, Wishy Washy, like...
Those are from the first album, I think, but...
Yeah, I don't even know who that writer is, Gilby.
I don't know if Gilby's... It might be the publishing company.
Yeah.
Because they weren't a band to co-write.
Yeah.
I recognize some of them, like Stay Young, I know, is from Underneath the Colors, but you're more familiar with them than me. But There you go.
Thank you.
All right, so thanks, folks, for tuning in, for bearing with us for this very, very long episode. Thank you for supporting the channel over the last 5 years. We're going to continue to do it. We have some very cool episodes coming up for you in the future. Each of us have a really cool concert that will be documented.
Yes.
In a very, very few weeks to follow. So, yeah, appreciate the support, appreciate the comments, and yeah, thank you for watching.